Tonight, gunshots ring out inside a crowded Toronto mall.
Everyone is okay. People are just a bit shaken up by the whole situation.
Shoppers and staff describe a terrifying scene inside Sherway Gardens as two groups of people began shooting at each other.
We're in exponential growth now.
With COVID-19 cases on the rise, just what will a fourth wave look like, with many Ontarians fully vaccinated? And
all in all, lots of people, lots of good times.
We take you to Port Dover, where a Friday the 13th bikers tradition is still roaring on, despite the pandemic. Good evening, I'm Farah Morali. Toronto police are investigating a shooting that happened inside a popular mall in the city's West End. Sherway Gardens went into lockdown just before 3 o'clock this afternoon. No injuries were reported, but it left many shaken. Jessica Ng is outside Sherway Gardens tonight. Jessica, you spoke to people who were inside when those shots rang out. What are they saying?
Farah, they were saying that they were feeling very uncertain after having been locked down inside Sherway Gardens for several hours today. Police responded to a call around 2:30 this afternoon for shots fired. Police Chief James Raymer says they are working with a number of good leads, and that's thanks to mall surveillance. But there are still a lot of unknowns when it comes to what happened here this afternoon.
A couple of guys that were next to us in the suits section were saying, dude, we got to get out of here. We just kept shopping, and then shortly after they made the announcement we're under lockdown.
It was far from an ordinary trip to the mall for Evaristo Ray, who was inside Sherway Gardens when the mall went into lockdown.
They told us to stay away from all the glass entrances and couldn't stay comfortable. They brought us water.
Police came to the mall after multiple reports of shots fired inside.
I just heard an alarm saying we were going into lockdown, so all customers were told to evacuate, closed and locked the door, and we just all waited in the back.
Toronto Police Chief James Raymer says it started with a dispute between two groups of 3 or 4 people.
There was an altercation, a physical altercation between several individuals. One individual is believed to have pulled out a firearm,
firing several shots. He says so far there have been no injuries, but
we believe there may have been some injuries as a result of a physical confrontation, but not by gunfire at this point.
That physical altercation left blood at the mall's Starbucks.
Some fled immediately, leaving their personal belongings. Some remained hidden inside some of the businesses.
And while some were able to get out quickly, others were stuck inside for multiple hours.
A little bit stressful the first hour, didn't know what was happening, wasn't sure if we were going to reopen.
After the lockdown was lifted, exiting was another challenge.
They kind of hoarded us all in one area, and we circled around from the bay all the way around to the front here, so it was a slow process.
Taking an hour to get out, but still a sense of relief.
We're just happy to be safe together and happy to just ready to go home.
Cadillac Fairview, the company that owns Sherway Gardens, closed the mall for the rest of the day today, but they tweeted tonight that they will be reopened for regular business tomorrow as the on-site investigation is complete. Police have yet to release information about the suspects, and they were asking people who are leaving today if they had any more information to share with them. Farah?
Thank you, Jessica. Our Jessica Ng live tonight at Sherway Gardens. One person is dead after a fiery crash on Highway 401 early this morning. The OPP say it happened around 3:30 a.m. The driver of a car collided with the back of a transport truck that was stopped and blocking a live lane of traffic. The car caught fire after the crash, and the driver was pronounced dead on scene. The truck driver was uninjured. The OPP say it's not known why the truck was stopped in that lane of traffic. They're asking anyone with information or dash cam footage to contact them. Peel police have located the parents of a child discovered wandering in a Malton bus terminal.
She was in good spirits the entire time. I know that she will have to be speaking to Children's Aid Services and obviously being reunited with her family, so hopefully she remains in good spirits. Yeah, right now we're just trying to figure out exactly what happened and obviously keep everything calm.
Police say the 3-year-old girl was found at a terminal near Gorway Drive and Derry Road around 4:30 this morning. She was found in good health. Police say they found the child's family nearby about 4 hours later. She's since been taken back to her home. The Children's Aid Society was contacted to attend the residence. Turning to COVID-19 now, where new cases hit more than 500 across Ontario for the second straight day. The 7-day average is at its highest point since mid-June, and hospitalizations are rising. The majority of those patients are not fully vaccinated, but with so many others vaccinated, what could a fourth wave of the pandemic look like? Lorenda Redekop has the story.
Traffic was slow at a vaccination clinic targeted towards youth. One father took his 2 sons.
I have like a barrier around myself, now that I can at least somewhat go outside, and like kids shouldn't have to go to the hospital, just because of this stupid thing.
That's exactly what Toronto Public Health is trying to prevent by starting these targeted neighborhood vaccination clinics, inoculating as many people 12 and up as possible in an attempt to also protect those under 12. With many adults vaccinated this time, Wave 4 is expected to be different.
Right now, yes, we're extremely successful also in international comparisons with our vaccine rollout. But no, there are not enough people vaccinated, especially those at higher risk of being admitted to an ICU, that we're out of the woods yet.
The biggest challenge is the more transmissible Delta variant, making up most of Ontario's cases. Plus, around 1 million people 50 and up still don't have their shots. As for thoughts of moving beyond step 3 of the reopening plan,
daily case counts double every 8 to 10 days. And to put anything on top of that now with further reopening would not be wise.
With concerns about the fourth wave, there were 3 developments today. Ontario's big city mayors called on the province to add a proof of vaccination system or vaccine passport. The province's Public School Boards Association called for mandatory vaccinations in schools. And 2 Toronto District School Board trustees added an emergency motion that would make staff vaccinations or testing mandatory. That's set to be voted on next week. Toronto Public Health plans to keep doing clinics at schools once students are back in class, plus working with youth ambassadors.
Where are youth during the summer, and how else could we be reaching youth, whether that's through different recreational organizations or at parks, or is that at a mall?
Slowly increasing the number of those protected in hopes of keeping a fourth wave from getting worse. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal government will soon require all public servants to be vaccinated. The announcement was made today. The new mandatory vaccine rules will also be implemented by Crown corporations and other federally regulated businesses like banks and airlines. Ottawa says it hopes the mandate will come into effect by the end of October, if not sooner.
The Government of Canada has been focused on vaccination and obviously believes, as do so many people that work with us, that this is the best way to end the pandemic and to allow for the economy to safely remain open.
Also part of today's announcement, a new requirement for all commercial air travelers and passengers on interprovincial trains and cruise ships to be vaccinated as well. There's no timeline on when those rules will come into effect, but the government said it's developing a measured and practical approach to do so as quickly as possible. The city of Mississauga is asking vaccine developer Moderna to consider building a plant there. The drug maker announced earlier this week that it would build an mRNA vaccine manufacturing facility in Canada. It's expected to happen sometime in the next 2 years, but the company hasn't said where it will be located. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie said the city would be honored if the plant was built there. She points out Mississauga already has over 470 sciences companies. She says she hopes the manufacturer will consider the city's request. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. Colette, it may be Friday the 13th, but I'm feeling we got pretty lucky in the weather department. That crazy humidity is on its way out.
Yeah, we are getting very lucky in terms of the setup for the weekend and how nice the conditions are going to be as we're finally getting rid of the stickiness to the air. But it was still in play through much of the day. Daytime highs, well, Ottawa up to 30 degrees, but even Toronto 29 and Windsor 28, plus humidex values again upper 30s to near 40. However, if you've been outside recently, you probably noticed already how things are feeling a little bit better as those winds have shifted direction. Now, we did have some active weather. Those two air masses, the one moving in and the one leaving us, very different properties. And so that sparked some of the severe weather and active weather from earlier, kind of seeing the last kind of remnants clearing out there along the northern shore of Lake Erie and through the Niagara region. And then we just have the clouds to get rid of tomorrow morning in eastern Ontario. Elsewhere, we're already going to be clear and into full-on sunshine and comfortable air in place. 16 degrees then eventually we get to overnight tonight. And how about just a comfortable 25 tomorrow, far with a northwesterly breeze.
Looking forward to that. Thanks very much, Colette. Just weeks before the U.S. withdraws its remaining troops from Afghanistan, the Taliban is continuing to sweep across the country. The Islamic fundamentalist group now controls more than 2/3 of the country, and there is growing concern the capital, Kabul, could soon fall to insurgents. Carolyn Dunn has more.
This is a victory lap, Taliban style. Supporters of the hardline Islamists crowd atop an armored vehicle as it winds its way down the streets of Kandahar. The Taliban's chief spokesperson posts a steady stream of images of abandoned government buildings on social media. They're not so keen to show what the United Nations has already deemed an imminent humanitarian crisis. Thousands have fled their homes with no money and not enough food. That's for those lucky enough to have made it this far.
We're also seeing the number of civilian casualties really spiraling alarmingly, and an increasing proportion of women and children are among those that are targeted. So it's a very dire situation.
Others are trying to get out of Afghanistan, and today Pakistan reopened its border to those fleeing, warning it doesn't have the capacity to take an endless flood of refugees. But perhaps the most urgent concern is the once unthinkable idea that Taliban fighters are very close to taking their fight to the capital.
Urban warfare in Kabul would be catastrophic. One can only imagine with horror what it would look like in Kabul, a city whose population, in a sense, is increasing on a regular basis because of the fighting going on outside of the city.
The United Nations is moving its staff to Kabul. But in what is the surest sign, there's real concern over the possibility of attacks on the city. Canada, the U.S., and the United Kingdom are all preparing to move their embassy staff out of the Afghan capital. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Washington.
It's a Friday the 13th tradition that goes back decades. For 40 years, bikers have rode up to Port Dover to celebrate the superstitious day. But 5 months ago, officials in Norfolk County discouraged people from attending this month because of pandemic restrictions. But as Dale Manukduk reports, that didn't stop tens of thousands of motorcyclists from showing up today.
Not the heat or a pandemic stopped motorcycle riders and enthusiasts from showing up in Port Dover.
Amazing. Feels so good. Everybody's so kind and friendly. The town's just accepted us.
All in all, lots of people, lots of good times.
There's thousands of people here, and it's peaceful and calm.
The OPP says upwards of 35,000 people showed up, but that number is low compared to years past.
On a day like today, for Friday 13th, pre-COVID-19, you see upwards of over 100,000 people here.
It's still more than the 15 or so people who started the tradition, along with Chris Simons in 1981.
I love seeing everybody come to town. It's a great tourism event, brings tons of money into town. Unfortunately, this year with the COVID, we can't have all the vendors and the beer gardens with the bands.
But the influx of visitors still brought a ton of extra business for the brick and mortar shops.
It always helps out, right? Any little bit can help out, right? The retailers have had a really tough time the last couple of years here, and it's nice to see people out and about.
Unlike years past where all of the riders could park and show off their bikes on Main Street, most were diverted to set up in residential areas.
Which is really a bummer to most of us, because that's why we come here. We want to see the bikes. We want to see them on the street.
You got to treat it as normal, right? You can't be too worried. I mean, if you choose to come here, then you got to accept certain guidelines.
it was just one measure the county put in place for what they deemed a non-event.
We knew perfectly well that people would still come. It's a beautiful August day. However, we just asked that people follow health and safety protocols.
The county acknowledges how important the event is to the area and hopes to have it run at full capacity in 2022. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Port Dover.
You are looking at a live shot of downtown Toronto, a much cooler evening, 21 degrees with a slight breeze. Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at your extended forecast. Colette, for folks getting away this weekend, it looks like a pretty nice couple of days ahead of us.
Yeah, it's going to be nice weather across eastern Ontario, through the Golden Horseshoe, into cottage country, southwestern Ontario. Everybody getting a break and a bit of a treat. And one of the reasons is just how much more comfortable it's going to be and not nearly as humid. So we've gone from dew points, so really seeing high moisture content in our air, where they've been up here in the low 20s to at times towards the mid 20s. And we're going to see them falling on our scale back down here to the comfy level. So some real improvements coming already. You've probably been feeling it if you have been outdoors. We had those winds kind of shift direction, and that's been ushering in this new air mass. So we still have to get rid of a bit of active weather kind of pushing through the rest of the Niagara region in eastern Ontario. There'll be a few clouds lingering behind, and then this is midday tomorrow, and you can see all areas here are going to be into the sunshine. The winds will be coming out of the northwest. Could be just a tiny bit breezy at times, but it's just a fresher feeling. And then this is Sunday at 4 p.m. Did you even notice that I advanced the maps? Might have been hard to tell because there just aren't any real clouds coming through. A few up into northeastern Ontario, very light fair weather stuff. So we're really in for a treat. And it's not just that it's dry through the weekend, into the beginning of next week too. And then we'll see changes, and by then we'll probably be looking to get some rain showers coming back at us. Overnight tonight, there are your temperatures once we get everything cleared out here. 15 to 16 degrees in southwestern Ontario. Some beautiful conditions, lower to mid-20s, just a little bit below seasonal for those daytime highs. Tonight, again, just a little bit of areas still to clear out here. And then this is what we are looking at. So it's just going to be in that comfort zone here for a little while. That's why it looks like this through the weekend. Monday, we start to just warm up a little bit, and we'll start to bring a few clouds in. And then late Tuesday, I do have a chance for showers, but that increases as we get towards midweek. Farah.
Thanks, Colette. $1 million class action lawsuit launched against Uber has just been certified. That means drivers can proceed to the next stage in the case against the company. They are pushing to be recognized as employees who are entitled to minimum wage, vacation pay, and other protections. As Kirtana Sasitharan explains, the case is monumental for drivers who say they want the ride-sharing giant to be held more accountable.
Yeah, it's very good news for us.
Mohammed Butt has been driving Uber since 2013. Today's certification towards the class action lawsuit is a step in the right direction for him.
You have a right for everything. For example, we have a right to work per day 12-hour shift. So if 12-hour shift, we never get even minimum wage. So what we are working for that?
We're getting, a lot of emails and calls from Uber drivers who are really happy that progress is being made.
Samara Belitsky is a senior associate at law firm Samfiru Tamarkin. She was one of the lawyers representing Uber drivers who are fighting to be recognized as employees by the ride-sharing company in a case brought to the law firm back in 2017 by Uber Eats driver David Heller.
These Uber drivers are not receiving all of the bare minimum employment entitlements and protections that all the other employees in Ontario have a right to, and basic things like minimum wage, overtime, holiday and vacation pay.
Pablo Godoy is with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. He says ultimately it will come down to accountability for Uber.
The impetus or the onus to protect workers at work should always lie in the hands of the employers. What we have today is a system where people individually are being tasked with that, but being hindered because their circumstances or situations at work are not set up by them.
In a statement to CBC News, Uber says they will be taking the next few days to review the case carefully. The company says they are focused on providing the benefits and protections that workers deserve. For Butt, if the courts end up recognizing Uber drivers as employees, he says it will change the way he works.
When you get benefit, when you get your rights, you have a good environment, automatically drivers work more hard because they know they have their rights and benefits available.
Kirtana Sasitharan, CBC News, Toronto.
Some lucky patrons were able to enjoy live music and a meal on a patio on the Danforth. It's all part of a pilot project in partnership with Cafe TO.
To animate the street with music. And by doing so, we hope to enhance the experience of shoppers and diners in the neighborhood.
One of the things that COVID did to us, it took the life out of Main Street. This brings festivities and a lively mood. It brings people down to the street to say, hey, the street is a fun place to be again.
This is a look at the Andrew McCarthy Quartet. Live performances on patios across the city will continue from now until October. A town in southern Spain is seeking UNESCO World Heritage status to preserve a sacred custom, socializing outdoors on hot summer nights. For years, residents have gathered outside their homes to play cards or shoot the breeze at sunset, but not many teenagers are joining in these days. The town's mayor hopes that will change as support for the UNESCO application grows. Residents believe their tradition is at risk because of the growing popularity of social media and the countless hours many people spend sitting on their phones. Well, I hope you can spend some time away from your phone this weekend and enjoy some of that outdoor socialization too. The weather's going to be nice. That is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Good night and have a great weekend.